Shalom lekulam. Welcome to our third lesson in Kabbalah for intermediate students. We're gonna be touching base on the subject of Olam Adam Kadmon, the world of Adam Kadmon, and we're gonna be talking a little bit about the parts, how that world actually developed, what it is all about, and also we're gonna talk about the partzufim that developed from it, and how these things are related to the beginning of the development of the desire the that we talked before about the 5 levels of the development of desire, and how the vessel at the end decided to basically make a soon and receive the light little by little. Now we're gonna know how this system receives that light little by little, and in order to bestow for the creator, and how in this process certain things happen, and this will be the beginning basically of a process that will lead us to what we call the world of correction, Olam Atzilut. And Olam Atzilut, which is gonna be way in the future, from what we'll be talking now. In Olam Atzilut, what we're gonna have is basically the system that we will know as the 6 days of creation, the world of Bria and the 6 days of creation. And that's something that we will eventually get to it, and with these intermediate lessons you will get to the point that we will read the book of Bereshit as part of our study, and you will understand what the book actually means, what the book actually wants to tell us. That it's not just a story of the creation of the world, or as some people say, that there was one man and one woman, and that's the beginning of everything, and that yes, for real, the creator created the universe and the world in 6 days. There's a different meaning. Kabbalah gives you the real meaning of 6 days, what it is all about. These are forces, these are laws in the universe that we need to tap into in order for us to make our own personal corrections, and also to make or help the correction of our root souls, and ours also the soul of Adam Harishon, the first Adam, which is the Adam that the Bible talks about. So we're going to talk today about Adam Kadmon and 4 partzufim after that. But before that, I want to make sure that as we study this, we separate the system. In Kabbalah, we separate the system into different parts. And we do that because we need to make sure that when we are expressing these ideas, we have somehow used the language of branches. As human beings, we need symbols in order to understand things. Like, for example, letters are symbols. When we use the partzufim, and we draw lines and put names on them, those are symbols for our mind, or human mind, basically, to understand what's happening in these subtle and spiritual realms. Not necessarily that means that that's the way things look in the spiritual realm. This is just symbolisms that we use in order to convey an idea. Okay, so that's why I'm emphasizing in the intermediate lesson in this basically intention, that as we are studying, that we need to understand that the creator is one. Basically, there's none else besides him. There's no other force. It's one force that rules everything, rules the whole creation. And that even though we can divide it into different, I would say, parts and different what we call forces, you need to understand that the light, what we call light in Kabbalah, which is not a physical light, we use the symbol of the physical light as as a way to convey the idea of that force, the upper force. That light doesn't change. It never changes, stays the same. All these ideas that we have about the partzufim, the sefirot, the olamot, and all that, and the letters and the atiyot, these are perceptions of the vessel. This is what the vessel, the desire to receive, perceives as the light comes inside the vessel. The light stays the same. The light doesn't get diminished. The light doesn't, nothing gets added to it or anything like that. The purpose of the light is to fulfill its mission, which is to fill the vessel with its delight, with its light. And the vessel basically needs to receive that light, but it needs to receive it in a way that is not egoistic. Okay? But as human beings, we're part of that basically desire to receive. So we see things as parts. And that's the reason we do that basically is the result of Adam and Chava eating from the tree of good and evil. Now everything looks like it is a part, but in reality everything is a tree of life. Everything is one. It's one center column, not two columns that are apart from each other. Okay, so that's why we emphasize on there's no one else besides him. There's no one else but the creator. There's no one else but the light. Okay, and I have added on this lesson another verse from the Tanakh, from the Bible that I found. Is from Yeshayahu or Isaiah chapter 4 verse 6. So says Adonai, Lord, the King of Israel and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts, I am first and I am last, and besides me there is no other God, no God. Okay, so even though in this verse you're gonna see a name called Yehovah Sebaot, Adonai Sebaot, or as translated here, Lord of Hosts. Lord of Hosts is one of the names of one of the Sephirot in one of the Sephirot in the Tree of Life. And that Sephirot is kind of lower than Keter, right? But that's one of the names of the Creator on that level. However, this is telling us that even though you have an interaction with that level of creation, remember that he is the first, Ein Sof, Keter, and he is the last, all the way to Malchut, and there's no other God beside him. So don't divide the Sephirot into different gods or anything like that, because it's just one force. It's your perception as a kli, as a vessel, that see the distinction, that see the separation of forces. But in reality, everything is just one force. Okay? All right, so let's start with today's lesson, and make sure we keep that intention, that as we see this, as we go through the process of learning the parts of this system, that we understand that all this system is one. Okay, remember what I told you about the scientists trying to find this theory of everything, in which they try to find the theory of everything being one. The Kabbalists have that already. It's just that it's from the spiritual point of view. The scientists are trying to find it from the mathematical point of view, from a theoretical point of view. The Kabbalists, they don't need that. They already know that. They feel that they have attained that. Okay, and they have actually throughout the years, through their attainment, they have transmitted that to us. They have transmitted that knowledge. They have transmitted that light that they have attained to us. So we need to tap into that light, but we only can tap into that light if we, as they did, know that all these that we're knowing is all about one force. That there's no different parts. This is all one force. Okay, and we're part of that force. We're part of that force. Even though we see each other apart, we're one soul, and that soul is part of that bigger thing that we call the Creator. Okay, so remember that we talk about the 5 phases of basically the development of the desire to receive. We talk about Atzmuto being basically the secrets of Torah. That's something that we don't know, but it's the beginning of everything that we know. And Shoresh means, the root of everything. That's Sephirah Keter, is a pure desire to give. And then we have the vessel of Chokmah, which is a dependent desire to receive. It depends on the Creator for its development. And Bina, which is Behina Bet, Behina meaning level or degree. In Hebrew is Behina. In plural, you're gonna hear me sometimes saying Behinot. So these are Behinot. One of them is Behina. So degrees and degree. Okay. So this degree of Beit, Behina Beit, Behina Beit is Bina, and it's a desire to give without receiving. The only problem is that in this vessel then this sees that in order to give to the Creator it needs to receive. So it starts receiving a little, and then reflects, the rest. It gives back the rest, and that's called Ser Ampin. And Ser Ampin is a desire to give, a desire to receive in order to give. Okay, and then we have this vessel here. This vessel is an independent desire to receive, and that's Behina Dalet. And basically all that we study in Kabbalah is about this desire here, Behina Dalet. Okay, and what happens inside this vessel, inside this independent desire. Remember, here it was dependent. It was like a baby dependent on the mother. Here now is an independent desire. It wants to calculate and do things for itself. So the whole system of Kabbalah is based in the following. Since this vessel was dependent and this one was basically dependent, this one needs to achieve a point in which, even though it receives egoistically, it can give back. So it's basically we need to transform Behina Dalet into a Behina Beit, right? So this is where we have the two Heys in the name Yohevah. That's the secret of that name. Basically, this Hey and this Hey, they have to interact, a desire to receive and a desire to bestow. And Kabbalah talks about that a lot, and that's basically what it is all about, basically raising the Hey towards Bria. And that's done through a Vav. Vav has the numerical value of 6. There's 6 midot. We say that it's basically a partzufim that has different parts in it, but we say everything is one, but it's a partzufim. It's considered a male for this malchut over here, which is a female. So everything has to be done through him, through this partzuf called seramping. The same thing with Behina Bey. Behina Bey is considered female if you compare it to Chokmah. So male, female, male, and female. Okay. So we talk about that development, then we talk that all these basically desires that you have here, they translate into different partzufim, and also they translate in the future is going to be translated into different worlds. So we have the world of Adan Kadmon. Inside the world of Adan Kadmon, certain partzufim are going to be developed that we're going to talk in this lesson. But that world belongs to the level of soul or light of Yehidah. Then after Adan Kadmon and all the process that happened, breaking of the vessels and all that, a different world is created, and that's the world of correction. The world of correction is Atzilut. But remember, before that, we're gonna be talking about the world of Nikudim, the world of Akudim, Berudim, and all that. And those things are in the book of Eitz HaChaim from Chaim Vital, what he wrote, from what he learned from the Arizal. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to use that book as reference for our study. And also we're going to use some of the Baal HaSulam Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag's commentary on the Tree of Life as well. And specifically one book or introduction that he wrote is called Pticha. Pticha is basically a preamble, an introduction to Kabbalah, which is very interesting. And if you guys are interested, there's a book out there called Pticha. It is by the group Bnei Baruch, and they have it's not translated, I would say, properly. There's a lot of information missing in the translation, but it's a really good book that will help you achieve some knowledge of what we will be covering here as well. But I will be using mostly the Tree of Life, and here and there I will be quoting some stuff from Ticha. What I will be doing for sure is that I found that the way that Baal HaSulam basically organized the way to present these concepts is very useful. So I will be using his organization of how he presented in Pticha the concept of Masach, the concept of the lights, the concept of the souls, the concept of the breaking of the vessels, the 8 Malachim that broke, that died, and all that stuff. But I'll be using mostly the Tree of Life and using Baal HaSulam's organization as a guide, okay? And like I said, the book Pticha from Bnei Baruch, I recommend it, really good. And the Tree of Life, there's a lot of versions out there. There's some parts of it that have been translated into English. I have some of those versions. Translation is not really good, and you miss a lot of information. If I find a Tree of Life translated into English that is really good, I will be letting you know that, hey, you need to get this book because this book is really good. A good translation in English. Okay. So Shoresh is basically Adam Kadmon that we're going to talk in this lesson. Belongs to the light of Yehidah, or soul of Yehidah, or level of the soul of Yehidah, however you want to, say it. Remember, souls are lights. So if you hear me talking about the light of Chaya, the light of Neshama, it's the same thing as soul, okay? So then Behina Aleph is Atzilut, Chaya. Behina Beit, Bria, light of Neshama. Behina Gimel, which is Serampin, is Yetzirah, and is the light of Ruach. And Behina Dalet, which is Malchut, is Asiyah, and it belongs to the Nefesh, okay? So remember when we said that what happened here was that this Behina Dalet was a strong desire to receive. It wanted everything. It wanted to receive the pleasure of receiving, but also wanted to be to have the pleasure of being like a creator or something like that. And it wanted all. It wanted everything egoistic. It wanted all the light. But then it felt shame, what the Kabbalists call shame, right? So it did a restriction right in the middle of its desire, right? And what it did was it created a halal, an empty space. And then in order to work on that empty space, it sent a beam of light all the way down, right? And we call it a kav in Hebrew, which is a direct or an arrow, right? And this soon happened right here in the middle. And the Tree of Light tells us that all this light in the beginning was or pashut, a simple light. But then that happened, the Tzimtzum Aleph, because it's the first Tzimtzum. And then from there, creation started to manifest. First in, I will say, spiritual, archetypical, way, and then to the point that we are right now in a physical, less subtle creation. So when this happened, that restriction was actually a masach, like a lid on top of that vessel, and that lid, what it did was, didn't let any light go inside the vessel. And in order to let light go inside that vessel, that light needed to be going in, if it was in order to give back to the creator, to give pleasure to the creator. Okay, so that's what really happened. It was like a filter. It was a lid. Light will not go in because it feels shame, right? So it stopped receiving, just like Behina bait, right? It stopped receiving, right? Because it's not right to receive all the time and egoistically. So I want to give back to the creator, and this basically is what is happening inside here right now. And it's a process of from here now trying to do this ramping, right? So what we see is that it start letting sunlight inside and reflecting most of it. Okay, and by doing this, it created a system, and this system is called Olam Adam Kadmon. And one thing that we need to understand is that this Behinat Dalit that we talk about is what we call Ein Sof. It's the Ein Sof that we read so much in the Kabbalistic literature. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're studying Kabbalah. Ein Sof, Behinat Dalit. So we're talking about this vessel over here. Okay, that's the Ein Sof, and this circle over here is all Ein Sof. Okay, then that point over there in the middle and the line, that's the restriction, the Sinsum. Okay, so now we're gonna study that restriction and what kind of system it created. So it created a system of Olam Kadmon, and the system of Adam Kadmon basically is the beginning of everything else that is going to come afterwards, to the point that we have human beings that are created in the image and in similarity of that system as well. And that's why we talk about the Pe, which is a mouth. We talk about Enaim, eyes, Hotem, and all this stuff that has to do with with the face. We're gonna be talking about right hand, left hand, but this it's not that this system is a person. We call it Adam, because remember, we're vessels of receiving. We have to give it a name, but we call it Adam Kadmon because it's a primordial soul of the universe. Okay, if we want to call it that way. So this primordial man or soul or being or entity or force, I like more the term force, has something called masach, which we talk about, which was a restriction that let some light in and reflects another one. And there it has a rosh. That rosh is basically means head. In there, calculations are gonna happen. So in there, it's going to calculate how much light I'm gonna let in, how far, right, and how much light I'm gonna push out. Okay, so that's how it's gonna work. It's a system that is designed in order to receive for the sake of giving to the creator. And everything happens here in the rush. So keep that in mind. Then it's gonna have a toch. So the toch is basically like the chest. And in that chest, you're gonna have some partzufim that are gonna develop. And I'm showing my chest in this way, so you can start thinking that way, so it will be easier for you to memorize this thing. Then there's a tabur, and we're gonna explain the tabur later. Just know the name tabur is basically like a barrier, just like the masach is a barrier on the top. This is a barrier in the middle. It will divide the vessels of bestowal inside the vessel, So inside the vessel, you're gonna have vessels of bestowal, and here vessels of, or egoistic vessels of receiving. Okay, so it divides the vessels at these two sides. Okay, so I'm gonna put up plus and negative, but it's not necessarily anything negative in here. All right, so that's what the tabur is. It's a division. Then you have the sof. Sof means the end. So it's basically, you have from the chest to the waist, and from the waist down is gonna be your legs, your feet, and all that. And that's the sole of the feet of this force entity is called Sium, which is the very end. Right? This whole system here, from the toch to the sof, is called guf. Guf means the body. Okay, so we can say basically that all this system here and what basically all of this vessel from the masach all the way to the siyum is the body, the guf. Okay, and also you need to understand that now from the rosh, the toch, the sof, and the guf, all together they're called partzuf. And memorize these words because they're gonna be used a lot. And in order to save some time, if you memorize them, I don't have to translate them all the time, you know. So and it'll be easier if you already know these words. So rosh is head, toch is like chest, sof is from the waist down, and guf is body, and partzuf is basically means it means like persona, like kind of like a characters or a person. Okay, tabur is basically a barrier that divides the vessels of bestowal that are here from the ones that are down here. The masach, of course, you know, is the screen that will let the light in and reflect it as well. Now, what we need to talk about the light. So you have Or Yashar. So Or Yashar is basically direct light. Or light, Yashar, direct. And this light is gonna go direct to the partzuf. And this partzuf is called I have it over here. It's called Galgalta. And Galgalta means the skull. Alright? It's gonna go directly to the partzuf. The partzuf is gonna let the light go inside through the peh. And as it does this, it makes some calculations in the masach, and it will accept some of that direct light in, and that light will become Or Pinimi, which means internal light, or light Pinimi, internal. It will reflect some of that light, and that light, you need to memorize this as well about the lights. The name of the lights is called Or Hoser. Or Hoser means reflected light, or light that is reflected back. And Or is light, Hoser reflected. But that light will actually surround the vessel. And that light that surrounds the vessel is called Or Makif. Or light, Makif, surrounding. So this light, it will surround the whole vessel, and it will exert pressure from outside. Okay? It will put pressure from outside to the vessel. But something that is interesting is that there's also the vessel feels a pressure, you know, from the Or Makif, but it also is gonna feel pressure from the Or Pinimi. The light that goes in and the light that is outside, we put pressure on that vessel and make it desire to receive the light of the Creator into itself and fulfill the purpose of that vessel, which is receiving the light of the Creator. Okay, so that's basically the anatomy, if you want to say, of how this whole system works, the world of Adan Kadmon. And this is how all the other worlds that we're gonna study in our lessons are gonna be working. This is just the beginning of a process, just like the 5 levels are the beginning of this what we're studying, Olam Kadmon, Olam Adan Kadmon. Olam Adan Kadmon is basically the same system that we're gonna see in the rest of the partzuf. Okay, so I have here, let me move this to the side. I have here a diagram in which we need to understand something, and is that in this diagram what I have is the same thing that is happening here with the vessel and all these fancy drawings that I did and all that. Now we're gonna see it from now on in this way, and basically what we're seeing here is the same thing that is here. So you have a P in here, this is a Rosh, and this is the P, so we're talking about this system here. Then you have this over here, which is the Toch, the light goes in and sunlight goes out, right? So this is over here. Then is the Siyum, the vessels in down here. And we're gonna talk about this partzuf, which is Galgalta, which is Olam Adan Kadmon. We're gonna talk about it in more detail so you can understand then how the other partzufim came about. But in order to not confuse you, so basically from now, all these basically drawings and names that we have here, they're gonna look more simple like this for you to understand the process that's gonna happen. So inside the partzuf Adan Kadmon, there are some partzufim that were created, and these partzufim were basically created inside these areas here, like in the Toch and also in the Sof. Okay, and they're gonna be known as Ab, Sag, Ma, and Bon, and the name comes because of the numerical value of the Milui. And Milui are basically spelling of what? Spelling of the name Yod He Vav He, and we're gonna touch some base on that. So they're gonna be basically inside here. They're gonna be Ab, Sag, Ma, and Bon. Now this is how it looks. As the light goes in, it goes all the way to the tabur, it bounces back, right, and creates a partzufim called Ab. And this, what you see here, is the Milui. The Milui is the spelling of the name Yod He Vav He. So what you see here is Yod He Vav He spelled in different ways. So in here, Yod He Vav He is spelled with the Yod. So you have a Yod, Vav, and Dalet, I, Od, and then a He and a Yod spell He. So this is spelled with the Yod. So it's more like Yohi, Viv, He. In this case over here, it is spelled in a different way, but the only difference here is the Aleph that is put in the Vav. Instead of Yod, He, Vav, He. Here was Yod, He, Viv, He. Then you have Yod, Ha, Vav, Ha, spelled with Alephs, right? Then you have Yod, Heh, Vev, He. There's basically no feelings in there of any Yod or Aleph or anything like that. So when you add these letters, because each of them has a numerical value, right, it will give you the names that we have in the top. Okay, so let's see how that works. So the name Av refers to the letters Ain and Bet, okay, which are written Av. So that's why it's called Av, right? In combination, hence Av, and have the numerical value 72. And this is where you're gonna see these, some people call it mystical numbers. There's nothing mystical on the numbers, okay? These numbers have no special power or anything like that, like some people will tell you. This is just numerical values that will help you connect to certain energies, but there's nothing special about that. But it gives you the name 72. You're gonna hear about the 72 angels, 72 names of God, and all that. When you hear the name 72, the number 72 refers to Ab. Okay, it represents the tetragrammaton, the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, written as follows. Well, like I mentioned, Yod, He, Vav, He, which has the numerical value of what? 72. The name Sag, ignore the A, just basically concentrate on the S and G, refers to the letters Samek and Gimel. So Sag, which are written Sag in combination. They write it, the Kabbalists write it when they translate, of course, into English, Sag, and have the numerical value of 63. It represents the tetragrammaton written out as follows: Yod, He, Vav, He, which has the numerical value of 63. The name Ma, ignore the A as well, right, refers to the letters Mem and He, which are written Ma. In combinations, they're written, translated in English, Ma, and have the numerical value 45. So another number that is considered mystical. There's nothing mystical in Kabbalah, remember that. Only spiritual things, no mysticism. It refers or represents the tetragrammaton written out as it follows: Yod, Ha, Vav, Ha, which has that numerical value of 45. In the name Ban, and this is where you need to understand the differences of all these with Ban, refers to the letters Beit and Nun, which are Beit and Nun Ban. In combination, hence Ban have the numerical value 52. It represents the tetragrammaton written as follows: Yod, Ha, Vav, Ha, which has the numerical value of 52. However, when you really write the number 52, it will be basically Nun Bet. So it should be, the Nun should be first instead of the Bet. But it is changed in order to have a name, and if you study Hebrew grammar and things like that, you understand why some certain things are changed like that. But in Kabbalah, there's a reason for everything, right? So in order to get the number 52, it is exchanged. Basically, all the numbers are straight, right? But this number is backwards for a reason. It means go back, right? Go back to the beginning, to basically to start way back. So that's basically the Milui. The Milui is the Yod, He, Vav, He, and then it's spelled with different letters after each letter of the tetragrammaton. Okay, there's a lot of literature out there, and if you have any questions, let me know. You can go to the website www.receivingtheupperlight.com, and if you have any questions about this, I have more info that I can send you. So this is basically how the partzufim, Ab, Sag, Ma, Bon are. So do you know where their names come from? The names are basically numbers. And Galgalta, it's Adan Katmon. And Adan Katmon basically is, it covers all this. Alright, this is all don't think that these are different parts that were created outside. All these parts are inside here, okay? So they're inside this out of here. So basically, light goes in, it gets a calculation in the rush, how much light will get in, how much light will get out. Light gets in, it gets reflected, it reaches the pay of the previous partzuf, in this case Galgalta, and when it reaches the pay of the previous partzuf, it creates a new partzuf called Ab. So the same thing, it makes another sivug. Remember that name, sivug? Sivug meaning the light goes in and makes a striking into the masach, and it calculates how much light is gonna be in, how much light is gonna go out. The light that goes in fulfills the vessel to a certain extent, and all the rest of the light gets reflected. The light that gets reflected, remember, basically is a surrounding light, then it gets sent back to the partzuf, to a new partzuf called sag. So all this is like a different level of receiving the light in order to bestow back to the creator. So what's happening is the following, right? We have here let me see if I can get, okay. So what we have here is Sephira Keter. What we have here is Sephira Chokmah. And what we have here is Sephira Bina. Seramping and Malchut. So this is the same 5 levels that you saw before, okay? And what we know as that we study a lot, in Kabbalah, is gonna happen basically in this partzuf. And when these partzuf start reflecting the light, and how from here the light descends, makes some actions that created what we call today the creation as we know it, and why we need to work on corrections and all that, okay? So just to give you an example of the things that you're gonna see here. So we said, that the whole goal of these classes is to learn how to read the book of Bereshit. When you read the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis, most of you are going to read it probably on translations like English or Spanish or French, whatever language. But if you're reading it in Hebrew and you see the written Torah, it has certain symbols on it, and if you take one of those letters, you're gonna see that it has certain symbols such as I would say, dots and lines in the bottom. It's gonna have certain symbols in the top. It's gonna have certain weird antenna like symbols on the top of the letter as well, and those dots, lines, and symbols have names. And this here is called nekudot. Nekudot means points. The letter itself is called atiyot. The letter is atiyot. These little symbols here, which are like musical notes, they're called ta'amim. And those are, they call it flavors, right? Flavors. These little antenna-like things, those are tagim. Those are like little crowns that are put on the letters. And all these things inside each letter, I don't know if you remember when I said each letter in the Torah, it's basically a vessel. It basically is telling us what is happening with that vessel, with that letter that you're reading in the Torah. In this case, what we see is the tamim, the flavors, is like when the light gets in. Okay, so we're talking about the light going in. Okay, so when the light goes in, basically we call that, because each of them, have a name. I'm gonna, and here basically you have Ab. Let me make sure the color is right for this one. So you have Ab, and Ab like we said represents Chokmah, right? Represents Chokmah. So this is Ab. That's Ab, okay? And when the light goes in, the light gets rejected, right? So you have points created when the light leaves the Kli. Which light leaves the Kli is this light here, right? So that light that we call Or Hoser, which is a reflected light. So that light is called Nekudot. So that also represents the partzuf that we know as Sag. Sag. I'll make sure I write it right. And make sure you're taking notes as we're doing this. Okay, so Sag. And then there's some, as the light departs, there's some memories are inside that partzuf, or that letter. And that's in the Atiyot. Basically we're gonna be ahead, but let's put it anyway. That's what we call bon. So that's bon right here. All right, and tagin, of course, is gonna be ma, which is tagin. Just write it as well, so we can make sure you make notes of this, because when you're reading the Sefer Torah, and he talks about how, or the Kabbalists talk about how the Creator created the whole universe based on the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. It's each letter in the Torah, with all the symbols and everything, can tell us a story as well. When you understand this, you know what's going on in each of these letters, because the nekudot and everything have different sounds. The atiyot are different; they're 22 letters. The tamins are different; they're different musical notes. The tagin that are put in there, the crowns, they also look different in each letter. So it's a lot of information in just one tiny letter on the Torah, and we have, I think they say, like 600,000 letters in the Sefer Torah. So imagine how much information is in the Torah. So this is just some little I would say little information that I'm giving you to get you excited of how much information and how many things you can learn by yourself as well. You don't need, and how much you can study by yourself when you understand these things. And the thing is, understand that this also here, this letter is a partzuf, like I say, it's a vessel. So each letter in the book of Bereshit, all the way to the end of the Sefer Torah, each of them are a vessel. Each of them has some light coming in, some light getting out. So the same process that you see here is happening on those letters. It's just that according to the letters, according to the tagin, according to the nekudot, you'll find or you will know what's going on with that letter, what is the forces that letter have. Okay, so that's about the 5 partzufim. I don't want to get more into depth into it, because I don't want to confuse you. And before we get into the next lesson, in which we're going to study these 5 levels of basically 5 partzufim, Galgalta, Abstract, Mabon, in more depth. And then after that, we're going to be talking about the Masach more, and then we're going to talk about, I think that's going to be probably the 5th class, we're going to talk about the Tamim, Tagin, Nekudot, and Atiyot. Because these are the lights. Remember, these are lights. And these are the lights that are going to be telling us what's going on in each partzuf, and how the system is working and all that. And like I said, we're going to be using the Ari as reference, but as a guide of how we're going to follow this study. It's going to be based basically on the how Baal HaSulam organized the book Pticha. Okay, so if you have any questions before the following lesson or anything like that, feel free to send me those questions. www.receivingtheupperlight.com, and I will gladly answer those questions, because from now on it's going to be kind of confusing. And before I finish, I want to make sure I leave you with something that you need to have clear. In Kabbalah, you don't need to understand at first hand everything that you're learning. It's not about the learning. Learning is information, it's all knowledge, right? What you need to understand is that you need to have the right intention. So when you study Kabbalah, you need to have the intention to connect with the Creator. And even when you don't understand it, when you don't even grasp the knowledge of Kabbalah, you can still tap into the spirituality of the light that just desiring to connect to the Creator by this method of Kabbalah, it's attracting. So you can tap into that light. When I started studying Kabbalah, I'm talking from my personal experience, I didn't understand. I was attracted to the subject. I read books, but I felt confused. I didn't know, because one book said one thing, a book said another thing, and I was confused about what real Kabbalah was as well. I was studying other Kabbalahs that people have out there that are not the authentic Kabbalah. They're not spiritual Kabbalah. They're more about other things that have nothing to do with spirituality. When I finally found the spiritual Kabbalah, the authentic Kabbalah that the rabbis and sages have been teaching for thousands of years, I still didn't understand the concept, because they are so deep. When you read the Arizal and the writings of Chaim Vital, it is so confusing, the wording and the way they wrote everything. They compressed a lot of information in a nutshell that you need to basically break apart and know what it has inside by yourself sometimes. But once you find the guidance of someone, a teacher, a person that can guide you by the hand in the beginning, eventually you're gonna learn how to walk by yourself, and you're gonna see that these books are not gonna be as hard. You're still gonna have some level of not understanding, but don't worry about it. It will come with time. Kabbalah is not to be learned in 1 year. Kabbalah is a lifetime learning. So don't expect to know everything in a year. Don't expect, because these classes are called intermediate, that means I'm intermediate. Pretty soon I'm gonna be in an advanced, so I'm gonna be a Kabbalist. It's not that. It's just names that we're putting: beginners, intermediate, advanced. But that means nothing. What means is the attainment that you have. And if you don't understand anything and you are taking the intermediate class, it is okay. Continue. You will get it eventually. The things that I'm teaching right now, I have to go over and over and over and over and over again throughout the years, because it is a lifetime of learning. And every time I go over and over, I learn something new. So there's still a lot of things that I'm still learning. So think about that. Don't get discouraged. It's too complicated. There's too many subjects and details that I will never get this. The important thing is connect to it. Connect to the Creator. Ask for that light to come to you. Ask for that understanding to come to you. It sounds too technical, but at the end you will see. So I'll leave you with this exercise. So we talk about basically the letters being vessels. I want you to basically meditate, think, have a moment of silence with yourself and meditate about that, about what kind of, and this is not, something that is probably spiritual, it's more like psychological exercise, but do it anyway. What kind of things are coming to my head, to my way of thinking about spirituality, right? How am I calculating? What am I thinking about these things? How much of this knowledge, how much of these messages that I'm getting from the outside, remember the light from outside that puts pressure on me, wants to come in. How much I am letting in, meaning how much I am receiving, not taking, how much light I am receiving, how much light I am reflecting back to please the Creator. And that means, how you reflect light. Am I a mirror or something like that? No, that's not the way you need to see it. Reflecting light means how much of that light that I'm internalizing is helping me make a better world around me, a better environment, a better person to guide others and things like that. So that's the way you reflect light back to the Creator. The best way to reflect light, especially in the days that we're living right now here in America and around the world with all this craziness that we have of COVID, and also some of the riots and marches, for changes and all that, and changes that need to be done anyway. All this thing is to show us that the light that we're receiving it egoistically. It's all about us. It's all about us, and we forget about the others. So how am I reflecting that light back to the Creator? Nature, that surrounding light, is putting pressure on all of us, and it's telling us it's time for change. It's time for you to start rejecting some light, and not rejecting in a negative way, but reflecting some light back to the Creator by loving your fellow human being as yourself. We are all one soul. We see each other as different races, as different parts of the of places, I say nations and all that. But we are one world, one soul, and we are all one with the Creator. But we see each other apart. It's time for us to change that and start receiving light to please the Creator, and create within ourselves a partzuf that we start receiving the light to please the Creator and start achieving the purpose of our reason for being, which is be in similarity of form with the Creator, which is being a bestowal force in the universe. Okay, so I'll leave you with that thought. Meditate on that, especially in these days, and because all these things that we're studying, they look very technical, but eventually you're gonna see is something you can apply in everyday life. And those classes, about applied Kabbalah, I still don't know how I'm gonna name it. It's gonna be about this that we're learning, but applied to everyday life. And they're gonna be very interesting, because they're gonna be very insightful even for people that don't study Kabbalah. Okay, so I'll leave you with this, and see you in the next intermediate lesson, the fourth lesson. And until then, shalom. Be in peace. Try to love your fellow human beings as yourself by reflecting that light back to the Creator. You'll and internalizing everything that you have learned. Okay. In the meantime, I'll see you next time. Later out.